Bring some of the stuff up.
I call to order this October 1st, 2013 meeting of the Mechanicsburg Borough Council. We'll begin with the pledge to the flag with Junior Councilman DeFaustas once the leaders, please.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilman Seacrest?
Present.
Vice President McDermott? Councilwoman Hardy?
Present.
Humes?
Here.
Councilman Miller?
Here.
Donner?
Here.
Whitcomb? Mayor Ritter?
Here.
Solicitor Floyd?
Here.
Engineer Rogowski?
Here.
Junior Councilman DeFaustas?
Here.
Chief Seacrest?
Present.
Chief Spots?
Present.
Secretary Dennis?
We have a quorum. Are there any citizens' comments or requests this evening? Yes. Would you kindly give your name and address, please?
I never conceived that. Wanda Blair, Post Office Box, 1393, Mechanicsburg, PA. At least I think that's where I live tonight. And I would like to know, if anyone can tell me, Patrick, who is responsible for the park at the corner of York and Simpson?
Technically, the Shade Tree Commission is the one that plants the flowers and pulls the weeds and stuff like that.
Okay, then the Shade Tree Commission needs to get up there and really do some major weed pulling.
Yeah.
I have what looks like the side of my car has been keyed due to the weeds hanging out.
Yeah, they're supposed to do a cleanup this weekend, but I'll express their concern to them that we're getting
Thank
complaints
you.
about it. You bet.
Oh, and can I send a bill to them to have my car repainted?
No, you can't.
Thank you.
Any other citizens' comments or requests? Yes, sir, please. Would you kindly give your name and address, please?
Yes, my name is Bill Walker. I live at 170 Brindle Road in
Thank you.
Monroe Township, outside of Mechanicsburg here.
Thank you.
I've been a resident in and around Mechanicsburg for 56 years. This is my first time complaining. I'd like to register a complaint with the Borough Council here on the way the code enforcement officer is being run. This guy just simply is a nasty guy who's got a burr up his butt. He causes trouble for a lot of people, and as long as Patrick's here, I'd like to have there been any other complaints concerning Jason Foster, the code enforcement officer?
Whenever we usually send somebody a citation or an unfavorable letter for something they've done, Jason usually is reflected poorly because he is doing his job.
Well, I have an example of a letter that was sent to me that is just pure nonsense. In item number 2, it points out that I withheld information on a zoning application. And it's just simply not true. There was a 10-foot, 8-foot by 10-foot shed that's being disassembled. And that was moved off of a concrete slab that was 8 foot by 10 foot. And for that reason, he's saying this ridiculous accusation, number 2, information was withheld on the filed zoning permit application, that I didn't show this deck that had been moved out. We have since taken that apart and hauled it away to the recycle center. That item number 2 is just simply nasty. And I'm wondering why things have changed so dramatically from the way they've been. I was a remodeling contractor here in this area for 40 years, since 1972. And getting along with the code enforcement officers in this borough was a pleasure. They were just terrific. Every single one of them I can vouch for. This guy has been causing trouble for people needlessly. And he's ridiculously out of place, and I'd like him chastised. And I definitely want the wording on this purged from the borough's records, and I want a letter of apology from him because he's deliberately being nasty. Did you address the issue?
Mr. Walker, if I may, Lisa Coyne, solicitor, your opportunity to appeal any action that is taken by the zoning officer is codified with filing any appeal to the zoning hearing board. So that is where the relief that you are seeking is addressed to. That's the application here regards a zoning permit. So the relief, if you're appealing and you disagree with the code and zoning officer's decision, that's the methodology that you have to to challenge that and have a hearing, and a record would be taken, testimony would be given at that point.
When is that board convening?
As needed, I mean, for
Yeah.
your appeal of that is under the ordinance that you would file a notice of appeal to the zoning hearing board.
Well, when he gets a vendetta against someone, he's just pure nasty. I applied for an application for a door surround. It's just a very small item. It gives a little bit of waterproofing over a back door on a place. 67 days to hear back from Mechanicsburg Borough, that's ridiculous. You know that. And he just is very vindictive. It reflects poorly on the borough. And I'd like to see you and your board direct Patrick Dennis to correct this issue.
Quite candidly, this board doesn't have the authority. He is like a police officer. He cannot be directed by this elected officials how to do his job. He investigates that. Your ability to challenge that or take issue with that is afforded you at the zoning hearing board for a full hearing and opportunity to be heard based on the application or the notice that you were issued. And if you file the notice of the appeal to that, to the council, you will, to the borough office there, you'll have a hearing, a full hearing in front of the zoning hearing board.
You have spoken well.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other public comment or citizens request this evening? Anyone at all? Very good. Thank you all for being here this evening. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the Borough Council meeting held September 17th, 2013?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Whitcomb so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of September 17th, 2013 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. Are there any additions to the committee portion of the agenda this evening?
Yes, I have an addition for discussion on the process of making a single contribution to the joint recreation agreement. The funds that are already budgeted, making a single contribution instead of having a separate account
Very good. That would be added under Finance Administration.
for finance administration needs.
Very good. Are there any other additions to the committee portion of the agenda? Unless anybody objects, I would like to add under Public Works and Safety, receiving input from the fire companies. There was a request made at the conclusion of our last meeting, requesting input from the fire companies, or at least one individual in particular, to voice some concerns that he has. And the solicitor is correctly asking me or reminding me to announce that it will be an executive session following the conclusion of this evening's meeting for the discussion of potential litigation as well as real estate, once again with no action to be taken. Are there any other additions to the committee portion of the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the committee portion of the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Councilwoman Harding so moves. Is there a second?
A second.
Councilman Miller seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the committee portion of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the committee portion of the agenda is approved. And foremost, we got the Committee on Community and Economic Development, Councilwoman Hughes.
Thank you. I have the minutes from the downtown Mechanicsburg group. I was not able to be at that meeting because the HARB was meeting that same night, and some of the points I have are the points that Rebecca has included in her report. Primarily, their focus right now is on the tribute dinner, which is a fundraiser for them, and also honors this year Sue Erdman. Last year, our mayor was honored, and so it's a nice evening, and it's a very nice way to say thank you to Sue and all she's done for the library. So I hope that there'll be a lot of you in attendance. Also, they have received a grant from the Cumberland Valley Visitors Bureau for $7,000. They have applied for other grants, and those applications are still pending. At our next council meeting on October 15th, the winners of the HARB Awards will receive their awards, and there are a number of them, 15. And in part because the Harb had talked about doing this for some time, but didn't do it. I mean, they thought, well, yes, we must get to that. So there should be there are a lot of very, very fine properties being recognized. So I hope you'll all be there for that too. That's my report.
Thank you. Is there a report from the downtown coordinator this evening?
Indeed, there is. My report tonight is full of good things. Some of them are loaded with calories. Okay? Under About Face, Carnival Colors, you can't help but have noticed what's going on there. They wrapped up the first phase of that project with the raised lettering, the gold-toned Carnival Colors over the new storefront, and the reviews are very enthusiastic, very positive. Looks terrific, doesn't it? And I suspect maybe next year when the Harbor Awards come around, that might be in the running, as for some of our projects over the last couple of years. Under business and property updates, here come the calories. Better Batter Bakery opened in the former Biscotti's Custom Bakery spot. They opened today. This is Tom and Jen Bowser. They have the Hard Bean Coffee and Bakery. That's a cafe in Camp Hill on Market Street. They own and operate that. And they not only leased the property, they bought that business. So that's very, very good news and the best possible outcome for that situation there. They live in the Mechanicsburg area. Wilcox Woodworking had their grand opening last week. I know that some of you were there, and that was a very, very nice event that I missed. I'm sorry that I was there, but happy that many of you were there. I met with Cosette Roderick and her father, John Corey, last week. Took them to Members First, and those are that's a father and daughter who are interested in purchasing 36 East Main Street, the former Eccles property. There is someone else who's toying with the notion of making an offer, but I believe these are the front runners, and Members First is being very helpful there. So I suspect that very soon I will be coming to the borough and the loan committee and talking to you about financing for that project in addition to the private lender. Tomorrow, Abir and Tanya Saruji will be in town. They're going to look at 4 properties downtown for their eye candy businesses. That's the accessories business, the women's fashion business, and the special events planning business that they have. And I want to thank you again for the Harbor Awards. I think that's just fantastic. I wish in the newsletter, though, we'd name names, especially when it's good news. Let's get some names out there, not just the addresses. I'm sure you'll do that at the next Borough Council meeting. I'm going to skip down to the Best Kept Secrets Tour. We've talked about this at our last couple of meetings. That is moving ahead. I'm meeting with a potential organizer for the Best Kept Secrets Tour, which first opportunity we would have to go toward Cumberland County, we would do a spring tour, and can't get that in place. We would opt for the fall 2014 tour, but 2014, the spring is doable. Meeting with them because we need someone who will coordinate the events for the spring of 2014, and that would be a part-time position, would be paid the proceeds of those participating businesses. That in a nutshell is what I have. The party that's interested in 36 East Main Street has Missa, and that's how you pronounce it, Missa Cafe in the West Shore Farmers Market. It's a Lebanese and Mediterranean restaurant. They would be open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner, a little later on Friday and Saturdays with a full brunch on Sundays. What are you hearing, and what questions, if any, do you have for me? Anything?
Any questions from Ms. Yurick?
The only question or suggestion I say is the address for the executive books can't be South Allen Street.
It would be West Allen Street.
Huh? Okay, not south.
Well, you caught me twice tonight, Don.
Uh-huh.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Committee on Finance, Administration, and Ordinance, Councilman Miller.
Yes, I wanted to have a discussion, I believe we talked about it before, but in preparation for budget season, I wanted to have a discussion on our contribution towards the Joint Rec Board. I know we had discussed that there are 2 separate accounts. There's the account that Upper Allen and Shiremanstown's money is put into, and then there's the account that our money is put into. I know there was some discussion on the board, the council, as to whether or not you wanted to see that money combined. is that the feeling from this? Because I would definitely like to see it moved in that direction. And if you have any comment on that, I'd welcome that at this time. And also, I'd like to discuss trying to, what the process is for doing that. I was wondering, what kind of agreement or legal document is necessary in addition to the joint rec agreement? Do we have to modify our portion of the agreement or what? And also, the other issue I had in mind was some sort of accountability measure. We typically required from the recreation director an accounting of the funds that were placed in the separate account. I'd like to still see an accounting of funds if we decide to merge the two accounts or decide to take our portion of the funds and put it into basically as a contribution to the school district, where Upper Allen Townships and Charlottetown money also goes. So those are just my feelings and questions, and I'll open it up to for discussion.
Very good. Are there any thoughts on Councilman Miller's request for input?
I think it would be a wise decision, because that way there's no question as to why there are two funds. It would just be the one account, and all three schools would be included.
Is that account taken charge of by the school district, or how? So where does our money go now?
It would go, Rod, I don't want to interrupt council. It would go into Upper Allen, Charmanstown school, or contribution goes directly in the school district general fund. So by closing out this external separate account with the separate EIN number and things of that nature, our contribution, which I think is $33,000 this year, would go directly into the school district general fund with Upper Allen's and Charmanstown.
So the school district is in charge of disseminating the funds?
Correct, correct.
We'd have to close out that EIN number too, which is...
Yeah, the goal being that if that is the way we're going to handle this, then both the pool account and the park account that were kind of external would be closed out. The pool finances would be brought in-house. We already have a pool account, and we would be working with that through our admin's software package. And then the park account would be closed out, and then our contribution would be sent to the school district into their general fund, and then they would be responsible for auditing of that and dispersing that information to Borough Council, I feel, every year when they do their audit.
So the only money that would come into the borough from anything on Memorial Park would be the pool fund?
Yes and no. Yes, but right now pavilion rentals are handled through the recreation office. Once they get that money, those pavilion rentals will go into that account, and then they write a check to the borough. What would essentially happen is the check would be written out to Mechanicsburg Borough, and then whoever rented a pavilion would come directly into our general fund. So the answer is yes and no, but there's no middleman anymore. There's no middle account anymore for anything. So the pool would come in-house, and then all checks written right now, if you rent a pavilion, you write it to Mechanicsburg Area School District. They deposit that into an account, and then they write us a check for that quarterly. That would go away. Somebody would just, if they wanted to rent a borough pavilion, would write the check to Mechanicsburg Borough, and we would deposit that into our account and then show that as a revenue line item in our...
I think that makes much more sense than what's going on right now.
Pat, I need a clarification on something. When the borough makes the contribution to the school district, that is then deposited into what has always been the park account?
When the borough, you mean moving forward or the previous?
Previous to this
It would be
point.
deposited into a secondary account, which was the Mechanicsburg, I think, Recreation Commission Park account or something
Okay,
like
and
that.
that's the account that's never been audited because of the hybrid of borough funds and school district funds. Am I correct?
The portion that is our control has been audited, but no, the entire global system has never been audited in one.
Precisely.
Kind of.
So that when Charmanstown and Upper Allen give their contribution to the school district, into which account does that go? That's the
That
joint.
would be going into the school district's general fund.
okay, which is audited by the school district's auditor.
That would be correct.
Okay, so the account that right now is currently not being audited by anybody is which account?
Well, we audit the account, but we don't audit the global whole joint recreation system. So that account that piece has been audited, but not the whole global perspective of it.
Okay.
And that would be the park account that right now is currently in place under that separate EIN number that we talked about before.
And that's my way of thinking, is the creature that needs to be killed.
Correct.
Moving forward.
Correct, and I think what Mr. Miller is saying is that if we dissolve that account and then disperse our contribution directly to the school district, then we will be essentially sending it to the district, who will have the ability to globally audit that situation as to the supposed hybrid system that we have now.
What direction do you need from us in order to do that?
I don't think anything. I think that we essentially, we would be dissolving two bank accounts. One would be being brought in-house, one would be a contribution that would be sent to the school district. You're indirectly contributing to the school district now, it's just through the secondary holding account. It would just, the only change would be you'd be writing a check directly to the Mechanicsburg Area School District 4 times a year into their general fund.
I'd like to ask an even larger scope question, since Councilman Miller wanted to raise this. When the borough updated and ratified the joint rec agreement last year with the school district and the 2 other member municipalities, I did not realize until after the borough of Mechanicsburg took over fiscal control of the borough recreation board, that the amount of finance that the rec office has been responsible for up to that point last June, when the borough took over financial control of those accounts. What troubles me in retrospect, if I had known what I know then, if I had known then what I know now about the joint rec agreement, even though the borough updated the agreement and put a lot more accountability into the joint rec agreement, notwithstanding the fact that it hasn't met in 5 years, it's troubling to me reading it now that there's not a single word in the joint rec agreement that has to do with finance or the expenditure of public dollars. Essentially, the joint rec agreement allows for the hiring of recreation staff and how programming is handled, as well as the administration of the committee, but nowhere in the rec agreement does it mention a single word about financial measures, auditing, so on and so forth. And so while Councilman Miller is wanting to open up the discussion about the benefits of giving one annual contribution to the school district so that the borough funds can finally be audited as part of the school district's budget, I think it's only fair to the rec director and her staff that we all acknowledge does an excellent job with programming to perhaps open up discussion with the school board, since the joint rec committee hasn't met in 5 years, to be able to request to update the joint rec agreement to incorporate language into finances. And I want to clarify that, because I think it's unfair to the rec office that, even though it's a good thing for Mechanicsburg, our taxpayers who are paying into that fund, to be able to have accountability for that. There's nothing in the joint rec agreement that specifies moving forward how finances should be handled and how accounting should be done. The month, according to the joint rec agreement bylaws, to make changes, or worst case scenario, to pull out of the agreement in its entirety, I just wonder if now would be a good time, since we have one meeting scheduled between now and the end of the month, to make changes to the next fiscal year, to be able to make a request of the school district to be able to make a modification to the joint agreement, and then in the meantime ask the other member municipalities if they would agree to make that change to the agreement, since it's got, my recollection is, an 8 or 9 year lifespan that began last year. Does anybody object to that?
The only thing I have to say about it is, if we're turning the money over to the school district, why do you need to change anything? They're going to be taking care of all the funds now. I don't see the need for making any change in that. If they're taking the funds, they're going to be audited, so the funds will be audited from them. We're not dealing with that. We give them money and they take care of what has to be taken care of.
And, you know, Brad, that's a good point. But,
I mean,
if,
Takes it out of our responsibility.
I agree with that, I agree with that thought.
I'd just like to see some kind of requirement that we be able to see the audit or be privy to the fund, be privy to the portion of the audit that deals with our funds, so that
But
we see.
the
that
problem
it's
is, it's going to be an overall function of the school district. How are you gonna be able to determine what money that we put in is either spent for Town, Upper Island, or Mechanicsburg? What I'm saying.
We should have access to the audit that's done for.
Well, yeah, but are they gonna specify $20,000 was taken?
Ideally, you wouldn't have to specify, we just want to see an audit for the accountability of the joint rec agreement, the joint rec board as a contributing member, as a board member. Going forward, I mean, that's what I'd like to see.
Well, as they've been saying, there hasn't been no accountability up to this point, and we want to make sure that in the future,
But we're not gonna have to deal with the accountability because we're giving the money to the school district.
but we want to make sure that the monies that we're contributing are being used appropriately.
And you're gonna tell the school district how to spend the money in the rec board?
well, what we're.
No, that's not the point. The point is to, as a member of the Joint Recreation Board, as a board member, which we are currently, you know, as a member of this board, you receive the audit for the Borough of Mechanicsburg.
I think I understand what you're saying, Matt, and I don't disagree with the fact that
Kyle.
we should see something of the audit, but they're not, I don't think they're gonna break it down just to the Mechanicsburg side and Upper Island and Charlottetown.
No, I'm not asking for a breakdown. I'm asking for a whole picture.
The overall, all three entities.
I think all we need
That's
to
the problem
do
right now.
is ask for a copy of the audit.
That's what you need to do, I don't understand what,
Well, that's what
That's what
Kyle's
I'm
been saying.
Well, I don't know that we need to redo the agreement, and we really don't have much time to do it.
Right. I mean, it's,
Maybe do it next year. But meanwhile, ask them for an audit.
I don't think changing the agreement's gonna do anything. If we're giving them the money, it's all out of our hands, and it's into the school district hands. And
That's, the problem has been that it's been out of our hands for too long.
well, yeah,
That
but
we-
it's
that we're-
now going somewhere that we can find out what's going on.
I hope so. With that said, I'd like to ask the manager, what's the status on the credit card, or the purchasing card? Is the credit card?
We have all this stuff.
Okay.
I got two things to add. I know I'm going to make some people mad when I say this, but I have found out from some research that the Joint Rec Committee had met in the last 5 years. They met last year on June 7th, 2012 in Upper Island Township, attended by Jeannie Anderson, which is the Commissioner of Upper Island Township, Steve Deagle, Charlottetown representative, and another representative from Upper Island Township. They met Upper Island Township Municipal Building at 7 o'clock on the June 12th, discussed the matters that were in effect and all the other stuff that's been going through. So they have met in the last 5 years. Also, I talked to Dr. Vandrew today, and the audit, the stuff that we dispersed to them, our side, their side of the audit, the 3/4 where we don't see is audited by the books every year by the school district.
I think that's what we said, Mark. I think that was the point is, I think the point from Kyle was making was that moving forward, but once we give that contribution to the school district, then all three pieces, or all four pieces will be audited together and then dispersed accordingly. I think from the, not that I will go delve too far into the executive session from the last meeting, but I think what our auditor said to Borough Council as well as myself is that doing an audit with one piece over here and two pieces over here is very difficult, so they're uncomfortable talking about the grandiose picture that is this whole agreement. I think moving forward, I think what Kyle's saying and what you're saying is exactly right, that they are audited, ours are audited, but there's no piece that's brought together that shows how they're working together and how they're you know, I think moving forward, it'll be a positive to have one entity doing one audit that can be dispersed moving forward. I don't disagree with that at all.
What I got the wording was that we were saying that they weren't, that part of it wasn't being audited. It's being audited. I mean, I made sure that I found that out from him himself.
You know, I've talked to Alan a few times too, and Dr. Lighty about this particular issue, and I think that they themselves, if they were sitting here, would say that there's definitely been some things that need to be cleaned up, and I think that they definitely were understanding of our desire to clean up kind of the process the way that it was by bringing that in-house. And as I said, that's how we were able to figure out that not only do we have the secondary fund, that had its own separate EIN number, but also that the general fund was where this other money was housed. So it's not, the school district doesn't have a separate account, it's through their own EIN number through their general fund, of which we would be making a contribution to that. So I think it would streamline things moving forward, but I don't think there's a negative to having one entity control the particular finances for this and audit those things. I think you'll be able to get a better picture globally of how things are acting.
I don't want to get too far off the issue at hand, which is Councilman Miller's request to talk about the single contribution to the school district, but since Councilman Stoner raised it, Councilman, do you have a set of minutes from the June 12th?
I will get them for you. I don't have them on me right now.
Pat, are you aware of a meeting that was held last June 12th, 2012? Is there a reason why we wouldn't have been invited to that?
Because our representative would have been Steve Deal at the time.
No, we changed the joint agreement prior to June 12th, 2012, Councilman. That's why I'm perplexed as
I
to
know why.
a meeting took place the week that our appointed delegate, who's a member of council, was not made aware of that. That's a problem.
Like I said, I made some references and made some calls, and they all agreed with me on this one.
Okay, Councilman Stoner, I would like you to produce for us a set of the minutes from that meeting, please. Very good. Anything else, Councilman Miller?
Just, if I may, just some guidance here for council with regard to the issue with the funds, the park funds, and the discussion held last meeting with our auditor and executive session. Based on the guidance and some potential legal issues that may arise, I think the appropriate guidance to staff would be that there'd be coordination with the solicitor and the auditor before any of the funds are transferred and retitled, so that we have the appropriate methodology for that to occur.
We can't even do anything right now with it because the auditor's told the books.
Exactly.
So when we get that back, we'll get a game plan figured
So I
out.
think that we'll have a resolution of some sort for review of council to give us the legal authority to deal with that legal entity and wrap that up.
Excellent. That answers the question.
Perfect. Very good. Anything else, Councilman Miller? That's it. Very good. Internal Review Committee, I have to report 2 incidents that took place. The first one apparently occurred the second week of September, I believe, on or about September the 10th. There was a collision between the police truck, it used to be the Dare, we're known as the Dare pickup truck, and a vehicle owned by Davis Country Living. The vehicle apparently was being driven by a community service officer, and it was a low-speed accident, and the only damage that took place was damage to the Agway tail lens on the truck was broken. It was very minor, and it's my understanding that's been turned over to the insurance company.
Which one was that?
That was the one.
Agway took care of that themselves, would not present us with a bill nor send it to the insurance company. They just repaired the damage themselves and would not, despite repeated,
Yeah, I don't think either of them went to the insurance.
repeated efforts, they wouldn't produce a bill or they took care of it.
Agway.
Agway repaired their own vehicle
Okay.
at no cost and no liability to the borough.
Okay, thank you, Chief. The second incident took place on September the 18th, approximately I'm guessing it's 6:53 p.m. A PSO backed a police car into a parked pickup truck, also belonging to Davis Country Living, in the parking lot beside the station. It was, again, a low-speed accident. There was no discernible damage to either vehicle. Unfortunately, there were no injuries in either incident. Municipal and Community Outreach, Councilman McDermott.
The Borough newsletter came out last week. I want to thank staff for getting on this job on consolidating, updating it, a lot of reading in order to keep us close to the deadline or when it should have been out. One of the concerns that I have is this is a newsletter that goes out twice a year. because of the delay in getting it, we lost a lot of information, a lot of good items, the fire parade, several events. So I'm basically looking to council for a consensus as we prepare for the 2014 newsletters. Do we wish to stay with this company? Do we want to see what the other options are? I mean, I know that the price for this is phenomenal. It has, on occasion, taken a lot of work off the staff by mailing it to the printer, but it seems to me at times that the tail is wagging the dog.
Yeah, the downside of, as Councilman McDermott said, the newsletter is essentially free right now. The downside of that is that we aren't in control of the advertising, which is what is delaying this going out. So the company won't obviously send something out until they've sold all of the advertisement, and Councilman McDermott's exactly right. Sometimes that means that we have all the articles edited, sent over to them, and it could be a week or two or up to 3 weeks, which has been sometimes nice because we'll see and we'll catch something, or somebody will throw something back in that we can add. But again, he's exactly right that the downside of outsourcing it is that it may be slow in getting out. So to kind of echo Councilman McDermott's point, if council wants to, look for another vendor, I'm not sure if another vendor will have better contacts or it'll be any quicker, but I don't think Glenda or I are married to this particular vendor. So if that's council's wishes, we will gladly do that moving forward. But again, Glenda deals more directly with the representation from the newsletter than I do. However, internally, we've discussed that, and that has been the one downside, is that there is a lack of control, so to speak, over timeframes when you do outsource it. So that's the major give. It is.
Can the current vendor handle 3 issues a year?
It's just.
They'll do whatever you want. Like Pat said, the biggest downfall is that they won't lay the whole publication out until they've sold the advertising.
Oh, I see.
So even if we have everything in by the deadline, if their salesperson has not sold enough advertising, they will wait until they've sold all the advertising because the ads pay for the printing costs. So, it's driven by that advertising, not by us as staff. No matter how early we get the information to them, if the ads aren't sold, they're not going to proceed.
You got a phenomenal, we had everything in place this time, we were ahead of the
We can
process.
look at other vendors. There are other vendors who provide the same types of service. We've been with them now 3 years, I think. So if we want to entertain some other vendors, we'd be happy to find a couple other vendors and see if they want any presentations.
We have something that's time sensitive and we can find that they're not going to get out in time. With this new website, couldn't we put that in there? It was time sensitive? Add that to that?
We could, but again, because,
I mean, realize.
This went to what, 5,000 households?
Yeah.
May reach a different demographic.
Yeah, there's
But
certain
something
things that we were,
read the website.
there are certain things that we were never going to hit. You weren't going to hit the fireman's parade, you weren't going to hit because of the lateness, the initial lateness in it. I know that when, despite your best efforts, I think the museum miniseries was going their second program the day it hit. I personally applaud the concept of doing it 3 times a year. As I look at this, the deadline for the spring and summer issue is late January. A lot of places just haven't looked that far down the line, and sometimes we're getting some great stuff as we're finally getting around to approving different activities, which is summer activities, later. Again, the only downside to this would be the postage increase.
And that's all, and John, you're exactly right. I mean, that's all a policy decision for how council wants to move forward with it. The plus side of when we did 4 newsletters in-house is that we had complete control over it. The downside is it cost more money, and we were recycling articles because when you're doing 4 times, some of these we're getting, there's a mess of information in these twice a year because everybody's trying to get their information in here. But it's just, we can definitely bring in other vendors, and we can just use it as a learning experience and say, we need better time frames and we want this to go out. But Aaron and Glenda do a fabulous job of trying to get everything over to them, but we are at the mercy of them selling the advertisements. So, but we'll bring some in. I mean, we have contacts. We'll bring some in and we'll talk to them and we'll go from there.
Would you include in that matrix the difference between, I mean, Councilman, are you advocating maybe as many as 4 issues a year or 3?
I'll go back to 3. I think we can see what the price difference is, the difference in there.
Okay.
Again, knowing this company, if they can do 3, then.
John, would you have any objection if they included an estimate for 2 per year as well?
No, absolutely not. Let's get,
Okay.
yeah.
When you say 3, are you looking for spring, summer, and fall, winter, or?
Right through April, you know, I guess we can.
Yeah, we put the annual report out usually in January, so
Yeah.
you may be able to use that as your one, and then spring, summer, fall, winter, or something like that.
Because that'll be coming in.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, November 10th is the deadline for the annual report.
Yeah, right.
The beauty of that is we'll get back to getting it out in February, March or so.
Yeah.
Agreed. Maybe that may take the place of the first, but
Yeah, we'll prepare something for you
let's
guys.
see what they can come up with too.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. And the report.
Great. Terrific. Property, Parks and Recreation, Councilman Stoner.
Yeah, we have an agenda item on the agenda. Also working with Pat on the budget for the park and recreation. The next recreation board will be determined because it's supposed to be next week with the Halloween parade. It's not feasible to have a meeting next week. Thank you.
Okay, so then the next rec board meeting will take place the 3rd Tuesday in November. Sorry, second Tuesday in November will be the next rec board meeting after the Halloween parade.
It'll be great at 7 o'clock next Tuesday night. Right, just the second Tuesday.
Sorry, the second meeting in December. Do they meet in December?
Usually they meet 12 months a year.
I was planning on having one this month, because with all the stuff going on, and with the bids going out for the baseball field and all that, catch everybody up on what's going on with that up there.
Yeah, we just, with it being canceled next Tuesday because of the Halloween parade, we'll just have to send something out and see if we can get people to get together if that's what you want to do.
Is there, in your opinion, is there going to be enough of substance to warrant a rec board meeting?
I mean, the sticky part where I'm at is candidly, for unfortunate circumstances, for the positive, there just weren't, I think somebody was getting an award or something and there was no way for us to meet in September. I'd like to have the budget out for council the second week or 3rd week in October, which means that they would have to meet sometime before that because the goal of that meeting in September was to go over budget-related stuff for next year. So we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. That I understand Councilman Stoner's passion to get them to meet, as it would be very, very helpful for me if they would meet, because I really don't want to delay putting out the budget any farther than past when I currently have it in my mind that I want to send it out. But that's just going to be kind of hostage to people's schedules if they can meet, and I don't see why we can't. They should discuss budget-related materials.
Sure, but speaking of the budget, every time that we advertise a non-advertised meeting, we're spending advertising dollars that we hadn't budgeted.
That's correct.
And I just want to make sure that if there's going to be a special meeting of the rec board called, that there's substantive issues being discussed.
Completely understand your
and
point.
acted upon.
Completely understand your point. Our scheduled meeting for September was to discuss a formal budget request submitted to myself to be submitted to you in October. That didn't happen, so my guess would be that it would probably need to take place in October before too long, because I don't want to wait to put it out. And I also don't want there to be any issues with, accusations of me personally ignoring the wishes.
I'm happy to turn the discussion over to staff if you'd like to.
Yeah, the memos that you got from us, the police department obviously went through some handicap parking permits. We went through them. We provided the information. The borough's intern, I believe, has provided some graphics associated with that. Basically, we provided this to you. We didn't put it on the agenda until council was comfortable putting forward it to the agenda, because there are a couple that the police department's met with, and zoning and sneeze. Okay, good. That the codes department looked at, and they do have off-street parking. So these are basically, the ball is in council's court to add these to the agenda if they'd like to take action on them. I think they're prepared and ready to go. If not, then we can put them on for the second meeting in October, but that's purely your call. We wanted to give you the information, so if you feel comfortable acting, you can add to this agenda, or if you want to wait for the second meeting in October, after that.
I just would like to point something out. The name Karen Luther at 307 North Market there was information in the packet, but it's not on the front.
Okay.
And I'm not sure how we're going to proceed with this, but if we're going from this list, we need to add that. And that was recommended for approval by both the codes officer and the police.
Okay. So we can wait till next meeting, or you guys can add it. It's up to you.
What's council's wish?
There's nothing in the agenda items, is there, for action on that?
No, but we can add it if you.
No, I personally think we ought to wait until we get through this and get a chance to find out why we don't have a full list here in the front to make a selection.
Very good, very good.
Okay. Got it.
Perfect. Anything else under handicap parking spaces?
That's it.
Very good. Is Mr. Trace with us this
Yeah.
evening?
To be honest with you, Matt, I'm not prepared tonight. I've had some personal things go on in my life at the moment. And I haven't had a chance to talk to either fire companies about some of the issues like that, so,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, like I said, I mean, this committee meets
Yes,
every
I
month.
know.
Okay,
Okay.
very good, thank you. Perfect. All right, are there any agenda additions for action for the action agenda for Borough Council?
I would just add under the first item, if we could add the authorization for execution of the developers agreement relative to Mechanicsburg storage and transfer. That's related to the stated item there, which is the drainage release, but we need authorization here for the council to
So you're
enter into that agreement.
Discussion and possible action on the developers agreement for Mechanicsburg area storage and transfer. That perfect? Got it. Okay. Discussion and possible action to approve the drainage release for Mechanicsburg storage and transfer.
Actually, can we have a motion to approve the agenda first?
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Are there any other additions to the action item agenda? Very good. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the action item agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Whitcomb so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the agenda is approved.
Discussion and possible action to approve the drainage release for Mechanicsburg storage and transfer.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Whitcomb so moves. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Harding seconds. Is there any discussion?
Just by way of edification, this was a drainage release that was reviewed by the Planning Commission with recommendations. Subsequent to the Planning Commission reviewing that and in consult with Mr. Gross's counsel attorney, Hubert Gilroy, there was a slight modification and clarification to the drainage easement, identifying for the record what final land development plan we're addressing here. I spoke to Attorney Gilroy today, as well as with Mr. Gross, who's in the audience as one of the general partners for this partnership. And they have agreed to amend it per my request and per the agreement of council. So it's a little bit different than what was appeared in front of the Planning Commission, and the difference is limited to just reflecting the recording information from the planning, the recording information with regard to the land development plan. So based on that, if we could just, as far as education here, that's a slight change.
Very good. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the authorization is approved.
Discussion and possible action on the developers agreement for Mechanicsburg area storage and transfer.
We did that.
No, I believe we did the transfer.
This is
That's
the
the
one that
developers
Solicitor
agreement.
asked.
For the
Did we do it?
This is for the developers agreement.
Oh, the developers agreement. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was there. Sorry about that.
Is there a motion to approve the developers agreement?
I'll make that motion.
Councilwoman Harding so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion?
Just as far as discussion, this has been circulated to Mr. Gross's counsel, as well as Mr. Rogowski. We reviewed this with staff. We crafted the agreement, so we're certainly in agreement with it, and we just look for authorization by the council to execute this by the council president and recording secretary, Mr. Gross, and his general partners will also execute that.
Very good. Thanks to everyone involved for all your work on this. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve the developers agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the developers agreement is approved.
Discussion and possible action to authorize advertisement of bids for the baseball field rehabilitation in Memorial Park.
Is there a motion? Councilman McDermott so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is approved.
Consideration and possible action to approve the special events application for PSU Thon Canning on October 19th to 20th, 2013, subject to the conditions on the event worksheet.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Witt so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Hartnett.
I'm sorry. I thought they just did this last weekend.
This
This
past
is
week,
act-
somebody was doing it.
This is the second of, there was multiple groups applied for the September.
Oh,
They
okay.
do it on certain weekends. There was 3 groups applied for September, first come, first served. There were 2 groups applied for this weekend, first come, first served. And then in November, I already have an application in from another thon. There's like 50 of these thon groups out there that raise for the Four Diamonds Fund. And they must pick these weekends because I always get a rush for a certain set of weekends. But I take them on a first come, first served basis because I realize, based on past discussion with the council, you don't want to entertain more than one thon group at any one time in town. So first guy in gets the consideration and we go from there.
And one may be a little too much.
And these are all
You know,
3
they
different groups. This is
screen.
not the same group who was here last
Yeah.
weekend.
This
And the
is
group in
another-
November, when that comes for council for action, will be again a different group than this one.
Yeah. Well, they're.
Actually, the November one is actually a Mechanicsburg-based group,
okay.
so I'm happy about that one at least.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the application signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the application is approved.
Discussion and possible action to adopt Resolution 24, 2013, setting the contribution rate of the police pension plan for 2014. It currently is 4.75%. In our most recent arbitration award, the arbiter found 4.75% to be satisfactory at that time. So with the resolution reflects that 4.75%.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Whitcomb so moves. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Stoner seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is approved.
Discussion on the MOU for the fire department consolidation.
This is a discussion item. Are there any thoughts? First of all, I want to thank council for your patience in holding off discussion on this until all 7 of us could be here. I believe there are some components to this involving real estate that can and should be deliberated in executive session. However, I'm more than happy to entertain any discussion at this point on the document that was submitted to us by the Consolidation Committee during their PowerPoint presentation, I believe 6 weeks ago.
I think it's a good idea, and I think we need to do that. But I think there's a lot of extenuating circumstances, little projects that need to be worked out prior to we go into it full force. So basically, what I would like to do is make a motion that we have the borough manager direct a letter to the citizens and the Washies, extending them most, I believe most of the council's idea would like to do this. It's our support in the consolidation of those 2 fire companies, but we need to get some things worked out prior to the actual moving forward. You gotta have some committees and financing and that kind of thing.
That's fine, and if it's, if the majority of council agrees with that, I would, not to try to muddy the waters, but I made a mistake back whenever we were to approve the action agenda for council this evening. I neglected to request to have the agenda amended to include an appointment of an emergency management coordinator. So with that said, as a special order of business of council, would there be a motion to amend the council action agenda to include the additions of, first of all, entertain a motion, discussion and action on a motion to approve a consolidation of the two fire companies. Is that what I'm hearing that you would like,
Do you
Councilman?
want to hear both of them at the same time? Is that what you want?
Well, I mean, it might be better to keep them separate.
I think
We
it's better.
we could do the emergency management coordinator as the second action item. But would there be a motion to amend the action agenda of council to include those two action items? The first one would be,
I'll make that motion on both of them.
thank you, Councilman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, this is just the motion to amend the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion? Are there any questions about what we're to do tonight? This is just a procedural move. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, to amend the agenda, to include two separate action items, including the appointment of an emergency management coordinator, as well as a motion to approve the consolidation of the two fire companies. The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the agenda has been amended. Councilman Whitcomb, do you have a preference which item we take up first?
No.
Is there any request from council which item we take up first? Do I hear a motion to make an appointment to the position of emergency management coordinator?
I'll make the motion to appoint Robert Cabada.
The motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilman Whitcomb seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to appoint Robert Cabada of the 400 block of
400 block of Hoaxtown Road, Mechanicsburg, PA.
All those in favor of the appointment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no.
No.
Okay, we have a divided vote. May we please have a roll call?
Harding,
Yes.
Humes,
Yes.
McDermott,
No.
Miller,
Yes.
Sechrist,
Yes.
Stoner,
No.
Whitcomb.
Yes.
The vote on the motion, ayes 5, nays 2, the motion passes. The appointment is approved. The next item is discussion and action on a motion to approve the consolidation of Mechanicsburg's two volunteer fire companies. Is there a motion?
I made a motion earlier before we
I'm sorry.
voted and ready. But I think it's a good idea, and I think, as I said before, I think the full council needs to be behind this, and I think we need to do it. But I think there's other extenuating circumstances, committees on finance and that type of thing, building, property. So I would like to make a motion to direct the borough manager to send a letter to both the Washies and the citizens advising them that we are in full support of this jointure and that we need to get together and get things moving in the right direction. That's my motion.
Thank you, Councilman Whitcomb. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilwoman Harding seconds. Is there any discussion?
Could we amend that motion to include the consolidation committee? Remaining members of the committee that did the work for 9 months on this.
I thought that was.
Well, in all honesty, I thought they were going to be involved in it anyway, but I will amend that and put that in there, yes. They can be members of the committees or whatever we need to do.
Councilwoman Harding, as the seconder of the motion, do you agree with the amendment?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, so the motion that's currently on the table is to direct the borough manager to send correspondence to both fire companies indicating council's desire and approval for further work of the consolidation committee to work with both companies toward the end of the consolidated police department.
Fire.
Sorry, forgive me, chief. Consolidated fire department.
So there's nobody for us to consolidate within town.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I got one question. Since we're doing this and Rod brought up some things about the MOU, is there a chance anybody on council has suggestions or idea or things that you see in the MOU? We discussed this last meeting about this. I did not get nothing back from any council member on any of this stuff. Pat even asked about it. Give it to us so we can take this back to the committee and let them look over this stuff so we know what you guys' thoughts are. I'm one person on this council and I can't make decisions while I'm sitting.
Is there any other discussion?
I agree with Councilman Stoner. This, other than the initial action we took to create the committee in 9 months moved faster than what this council has to respond to this as in the last almost 2 months.
And they
their
brought
job is
us,
a lot tougher.
they brought us to this point, and I'm glad that they did bring us to this point, because we're about to make a vote on a very important issue. So I really commend them for their work, and they have really brought us to this point right now where we're going to make a vote on this motion.
So after the great work that they did presenting us with the different points, we're now going to come up with a resolution saying, yes, we support the idea of the consolidation, without necessarily supporting either particular position or beating anything or ruling anything in or out. We're going to be back to where we were a year plus ago.
Councilman Stoner, I'm sorry, Councilman McDermott, if I understand your question correctly, I guess respectfully, the answer I would say is no, that's not the case, because council hopefully will be unanimous in sending a clear direction to the manager to inform the fire companies that we support consolidation. I mean, there's apparently.
I think that was my motion.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, is there ambiguity about what we're trying to do here?
Yeah.
With regard to what?
I think the committee does an honorable amount of work and is asking us for direction, and we're not really giving them any direction. We're not acting, saying that there's some legality concerns that we have. We probably should have had that earlier, and either ruled things in or out. That basically we're now saying, I guess we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna have an executive session tonight behind closed doors and discuss some of these concerns. And in 2 weeks, we're gonna come back maybe to something else, or if somebody's not, from some council's not here that night, we're simply gonna have to table it for 2 weeks.
I mean,
I knew we weren't gonna get anything done this year, probably, but it just seems like.
It's not gonna move that fast.
Correct.
You know that.
There's too many issues
I mean,
that have to be.
in all honesty, I don't foresee this happening in the next 5 years. Because you're talking a lot of money involvement, and there's a lot of stuff involved in getting this all together. And the big thing is the money situation. To obtain the finances to do such a move we have here is going to take some work and time.
I completely agree with that. And, my recollection from when council took action back in October of last year to appoint the consolidation committee, we asked the committee to perform the task of providing council guidance on whether or not a consolidation is a good thing. And the committee did that, and they've provided us with their findings, which is, yeah, this is a good thing, now's the time to move forward, and we're about to do that. Hopefully, if we can get 4 votes for it. So I think tonight's a pretty profound event in the chronology of this process.
I mean, I have no problem with Rod's motion, I'm not saying nothing against that, I'm just saying, I don't know if there's a couple of committee members in the room, but give us your thoughts or your direction, how you want, I mean, we know which way we want to go, but it's the same way we want to go, it's the same way council wants to go.
But we're not going to be able to make that decision.
You can see the MOU and see where our
and that-
mistakes are.
The MOU, we reviewed, and none of us had any, I don't see where any of us had any problem with it.
There are a number of issues, Councilman, that need to be discussed.
But I'm saying, you just can't go forward without putting all the pieces in place and saying, all right, we have to do this, we have to look at that, we have these legal issues.
We're not saying that, we're not what we're saying, we're saying we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. That's what we're trying to do.
Along the way, we will make those decisions.
After this vote, we'll hopefully be all on the same page which direction we're headed. Great. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to approve all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it, and the motion passes by a vote of 7-0. Thank you, folks. Are there any citizens' comments this evening? Yes, ma'am.
I'm still Wanda, I still live where I did before.
You didn't move.
No,
Damn.
isn't that amazing? I would like to know why an emergency management coordinator the borough has been appointed. Why not someone in the borough?
No one in the borough had the qualifications and came forward and applied for the position.
Why was the emergency management coordinator that we had dismissed in the first place?
Ma'am, that is a matter of personnel, and as such, is a matter that would need to be discussed privately in an executive session.
Okay, now, we've been through 2 emergency management coordinators since the first of the year.
I don't believe that's the case, ma'am.
What is Mindy?
Lieutenant Myers, up until midnight tonight, is currently the emergency management coordinator for the borough of Mechanicsburg.
Okay, and before that, it was Mr. Trice.
That's correct.
So we've been through 2 coordinators so far this year. We still have 2 months to go. So if you had a problem with either one, why didn't you offer to let them do some training like the chief does? You know, you pay for him to go to classes and stuff, so why not, pay for one of these 2 people to have gone to classes instead of appointing someone outside the borough that really has no interest in our borough?
And I appreciate your question, ma'am, but again, that's a question of employment, which is a matter of personnel.
But still, my point is, you needed to find someone in the borough.
You're entitled to your opinion, ma'am. Thank you for it.
And it's gonna stay that way. Also, I would like to bring up, back several meetings ago, Rebecca was making the statement about the pole flags. And she said that the design would be to her choosing. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. It should be put up to a vote of the citizens of what they want on the flags, on the poles in town, like an American flag.
Yeah, Ms. Blair, first of all, would you kindly address your comments to council and not members of the community? Secondly, respectfully, I don't recall that this was a question of American flags.
Now, it wasn't a question of American flags, but she made the statement that the design on the flags on the poles was to her discretion. And I made the comment to her after the meeting that the American flags look very nice on Main Street, and she said that they've been worn out. So, why is it just one person's decision as to what the flags are gonna be on the town poles?
She's talking about the other one that says, "Welcome to Mechanicsburg."
Right, so why can't there be a vote done, like in the newsletter, as to what residents would like to see?
I think she was just planning on getting these, I think she was just planning on coming back with some ideas for us to look at. I mean, that's all she was doing, she wasn't gonna make a decision.
That's what I would have liked to have heard, but she made comments standing right here, of course, the design will be to my discretion.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear that.
I didn't hear it either.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the community who would like to be heard this evening? Any other citizens' comments or requests? Anyone at all? Thank you again, everyone, for being here this evening. Is there any other business to come before council? Office Manager Boyer, Manager Dennis?
Other than the budget should be out in the next couple of weeks. Enjoy it, very fun.
Got a sixth sense of humor.
It's hard to get that way.
Chief Spots.
No, I'm not here for that comment, no.
Need a minute. Mayor Ritter.
I think our manager's been nearing 5 years. When is the 5 years?
October 6th.
October 6th.
October 6th.
I'd like to give you